Okay, so the glutes. Reason why they're important, of course, is going to be because they bend your body. They help you jump. They help you walk. They help keep your core tight. They help keep your posture upright. So those are one of the main reasons why glutes are very important. So should guys train glutes? Should it only be females? Should it be young kids? Should it be elderly people? Who should train glutes? Personally, everyone should train glutes, in my opinion. But now for aesthetics, of course, not a lot of guys train glutes, and it's gonna be mostly females. But for purpose-wise of the muscle and how it's actually supposed to function, glutes are probably one of the biggest things that you could train that helps keep yourself healthy, helps keep you moving around, and it just overall is just one of the biggest muscles that you could train that could help you get a good posture, a good stance, a good core. So overall, glutes are pretty important when it comes to training. So a little bit of a glute diagram, just to kind of like a little bit more clear for a lot of people, just in case you didn't know. So the glute maximus is of course going to be the biggest one, which is going to be this one right here. Let's see if I could make this little pen a little bigger. So yeah, glute maximus right there, which is going to be the biggest one. Now the way that this one kind of runs, in my opinion, or in the way the human anatomy it kind of is, not just necessarily my opinion, but it runs almost kind of up and down, if you want to say. It does cross a little bit, and then one of the reasons that it kind of crosses is that it goes towards like the upper, not the upper, the lower lats, the lower back, which is one of the reasons why it keeps your posture correct and it helps you kind of get, that good form. So this one goes up and down. So one of the reasons why you want to do something that trains the glutes is going to be anything that helps it, that is stretch going up and down. Now the glute medius, which is kind of a little bit on top of the glute maximus, and then you have the glute minimus, which is kind of behind the glute medius, that kind of helps keep that muscle going side to side, and this one also going side to side and up and down. So those are the things that the muscles and how they function. So you always gotta think about how the muscle is gonna be contracting, how the muscle is stretching, how the muscle moves. Basically, the way I like to think about it is how does the muscle move up or down, or side to side, or diagonally? How does the muscle move? How does it stretch? How does it contract? And in that aspect, that's the only way that you can kind of think about it to make it easier. So you could, when you think about an exercise, you think about how do I do this, or how do I go about making this muscle work? When you think about like the bicep, it helps you go this way. So if you, for example, if you try to do anything that's going side to side like this, you're not necessarily working the bicep because you're never putting any type of tension, any type of stretch on that muscle. Same thing with the glute. So if you want to be doing anything, you want to be kind of stretching it going this way, back and up and down. Or if you want to think about stretching it side to side, opening your legs. So that's a little bit of a diagram. So to just kind of help you guys get that mentality, or kind of see what it is that the glute does necessarily. So we'll be doing some workouts. They're going to be glute and hamstring focus, just preferably just for this video. And if you guys have any good ideas or any better recommendations on glute workouts, go ahead and drop them in the bottom and let's all share. So let's head to the gym. We're going to be doing some workouts and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let's talk squats, or let's talk glutes. So when it comes to glutes, of course, the biggest thing is that it helps with anything that is hinging, opening your legs, standing, walking, jumping, anything in that aspect. That's what glutes are there for. That's what they do. They help keep your lower back, stiff, braced, and they also do that same thing with basically with your core. So with your abs or anything like that, it kind of keeps you that good posture. So it prevents you from basically just collapsing, almost, if you want to say. Now walking is really important, jumping is really important. keeping your core balance is really important, because that overall is like your general activity with anything that you do, whether it's sitting down or whether it's walking or even just playing. So that plays a huge role in that aspect. So when it comes to glutes, of course, you have three muscle groups, like we were saying, the gluteus medius, maximus, and the minus, and they each play their own little role in what like aspect they do. So it's kind of important to basically, train that. You kind of just don't want to go about it and kind of forget about it. Now, one thing you don't necessarily have to do is you don't necessarily have to like put your own specific date for glute. You can kind of just do compound movements, and it's gonna hit glutes in that aspect. It's not gonna train it to the point where it's gonna make it like super crazy big, but it's gonna train it. So that's totally up to you if you want to have a glute day. Kind of like how females have a glute day. It's not just generally aesthetics, but it plays a big role. So you kind of just don't want to disregard glutes. So we're going to be doing some glute exercises. They're going to be mostly hamstring and glute focused, not a lot of quad focus, just for that aspect. So I'll be going around showing you a couple of them, and we'll talk about them. So let's start. Okay. Okay, so one of the main ones that I recommend from the top three that we're going to be doing, or not the top three, from the couple that we're going to be doing, the top three that I recommend, one of them is going to be squats. So the main reason with squats is, I know people think it's mostly a big quad focus exercise, but at the same time, it's really a big glute focus, depending on how you do it, of course. Now, when you think of the muscles, you got to kind of have to think about it on how they run, and depending on which way they run, if you could stretch it in that aspect, then of course that's where you're going to get the workout. So on the gluteus maximus, which is the biggest one, it runs basically up and down almost. So when you're hinging your body, going from straight up, and then you cross your knee and you bend down, you're stretching the quad and you're stretching the glute. So you're going to be doing both aspects in that, and at the same time, it's one of those things that it's a compound movement, so it's hitting multiple muscle groups, but it focuses more on certain parts. So one of the biggest ones, of course, is going to be the quads, but glutes are really nice on hitting this too. And you have the sumo stance, which is basically kind of regarded as kind of like a glute and hamstring focus stance, but just a regular barbell squat is really nice, so I recommend these. Okay, let's try to give you guys a different angle from the side. So when you go down, of course you have this part stretching, so that's a quad, but at the same time you have this part stretching, which is the glute. So, you're gonna be hitting those two muscle groups, and that's the way I like to think of exercises. So when you think about exercises, where do they stretch? So there's a stretch this way, there's a stretch that way, and as you can see, when you go down, you're stretching your glute because you are contracting it and bringing it back. So at the same time with the quad, you're doing the exact same thing. So, that's where it focuses, that's where it hits. So this is why it's a really good exercise for like glute at the same time. So. Okay, so now let's talk about number 2 from the top 3 recommended. So personally, another one that I recommend
for glutes are gonna be hip thrusts. Now, there are different variants where people do barbell, dumbbell, or even machine hip thrusts. Personally, I feel like you get the most out of the barbell, and I feel like you can just go heavier. You can load it up more. So there's the option for progressive overload on that option. Now you can do the same thing on the machines. Of course, you could put more and more and more and more. But I just feel that anytime that you're able to use any muscles that help you kind of like learn how to balance, like for example, on a squat, you have the machine that you could do also, the Smith machine, and that one basically takes out the option of using certain muscles that help you balance. And anytime you have the option to just basically kind of like learn how to do more or even be better, I always think it's a better opportunity to go that option. So that's the reason why I think barbell hip thrusts are a little bit more better than the machine hip thrusts, just for the fact that, you know, you're getting that option to learn how to balance yourself out a little bit more compared to the machine, where the machine is locked in, you're locked in, and you kind of just focus on the glute, which is really nice on targeting the system, the muscle that you're trying to hit, which is the whole point. But at the same time, it's really nice to just kind of learn how to progress on learning how to use different muscle groups to help yourself out. Now, barbell hip thrust. The way I like to set it up is I like to put my shoulder blades right on the cushion, seat, whatever you want to use, chair, rack, TV. That's the way I like to do it. Now, you're gonna have to think about your whole body as a hinging motion, like how we talked about earlier. So wherever the body hinges, where the body flexes, wherever the body contracts and closes, however you want to think about it, that's basically what you're going to be targeting. That's where you're going to be targeting. So when you're doing your hip thrust, the best way to look about it is you want to bring yourself tucked in. So a lot of people have the mistake of just basically dropping the pelvic area down, their abdominal. They just drop that and they keep their back on the pad at all times. And personally, I don't think that's the best way to recommend it, and I think that's probably one of the best way to get injured. So the best way that I think about it is kind of using the machine aspect where your body's locked in and you're flat on the pad, and you kind of just hinge your butt and you're moving up and down with it the entire time. So that's the way I like to think about it. So feet shoulder width apart, and then not too far out, so that way you don't activate too much of a certain muscle group like the hamstrings, or not too close to you, so you don't activate certain other parts. So it's nice to have a little equal balance. So you'll know when it's too far, trust me. Okay, so like how we talked about it, you want to hinge your whole body down. Basically just tuck yourself in. Okay, try to give you guys a different angle, side angle, so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so like I said, shoulder blades kind of like on the padding. That's going to be the best way to kind of just keep yourself in that locked in position, so you don't are too back and you're not using enough of the motion, range of motion, and at the same time it's not too far off so you fall off. So you can't really see my feet, or you kind of can, but you know, not too far out, like I said. Okay, you see the 90? Well, you probably can't see the 90, but so when you come down, you're tucking your body in and you're bringing it up. Tucking it in, and you're bringing it up. And you're kind of creating this like little shape almost. And that's essentially what you want to do. But you see how the whole body moves up the torso? That's what you want to kind of aim for. You want to move the whole upper body torso at the same time to kind of have the little swaddling or paddling, whatever you want to call it, the leaning. So you don't want to just drop your pelvic area. You want to keep your whole body, your upper torso locked in, and you kind of just hinge it with it. So hopefully that was a little bit better on the side view. Let's talk about top 3 that I recommend when it comes to glute, and it's going to be RDLs. So what is RDL? Romanian deadlift, RDL. So there's multiple ways you could definitely do this. You could definitely do it with the dumbbells, or you could do it with the barbells. Now, kind of how you go about it is ultimately up to you. And in the end, whichever one feels more comfortable for you is kind of recommended. But me personally, I think it's always best to do them with dumbbells. You kind of have a little bit more, less worrisome of smacking your knees, scratching your knees when you're bringing the barbell, and trying to almost switch it to a regular deadlift, which is not an RDL. Now, of course, deadlifts do target the whole back, posterior side of it. So back, glute, hamstring, you're hitting all that. At the same time, you're hitting some traps and stuff like that. But the good thing about the RDLs is that we're gonna be focusing more on the glute part and the hamstring part as opposed to anything else. And that's the reason why I like to do it personally with the dumbbells, kind of as opposed to the barbell. Now, if you feel more comfortable doing it with the barbell, you could definitely do it like that too. So totally up to you. On this, it's going to be almost the same thing. We just want to keep hinging. We want to keep hinging our bodies, so that way our bodies keep hinging, which is our hip point, and that's where the glute stretches the most when it comes to hinging. So try to find some type of line that's straight, so you kind of have your feet even apart, and you're going to go for shoulders, and you're going to just basically push your butt as back as possible. You're not going to go all the way down. You're not going to drop the dumbbell all the way like this. You're going to just basically hinge your butt, kind of like how everyone always says, if you're pushing a button with your butt. That's the best way to think about it. So you want to keep your back almost as straight as possible and not curved. So that way you don't necessarily hurt yourself on the back end. At the same time, you don't want to bend your knees too much, because then at that point we're taking out the point of the Romanian deadlift. So you guys a side angle. Okay, so you see how the body hinges right there? That's kind of where you want your glute to be hinging that motion. So you kind of have the stretch there, and that's where the whole muscle is being targeted at. So the legs could be a little bit stiff, not too stiff, and not too bent. You don't want to bend it all the way, but you can have a little bit of bend on the knees, and then just go from there. Okay, it wouldn't be a glute video if you didn't have abductors. So, like how we were saying earlier, what does the glute do? What's the purpose of the glute? It helps not just for hinging, for jumping, running, walking. This is what hinging. At the same time, it also helps get your leg to an outward position. So spreading your legs, opening your legs. So in that aspect, the whole point of the glute is basically to help get the leg from the middle, which is the straight center of your body, outwards to open it up. So when it comes to doing certain type of squats, sumo squats or anything like that, the gluteus is what's helping on that aspect. So another good thing to do is abductors. the whole point of the abductors are going to be on the side, and you still are going to be targeting the maximus, since the maximus is the biggest muscle. Of course, you're still going to be hitting that aspect multiple times when you're doing certain glute exercises, but you're also going to try to be activating different parts of the glutes, the medius and the minus. So you want to activate that other part of the muscle, and that's what the side of the muscle is for, the medius one, the side ones, if you want to call them. That's what I like to call it in an aspect, just because, you know, the other one is the big one that runs through the middle. But so you want to activate that to help you basically learn how to spread your legs a little bit open to get them outwards, and not that kind of spread your legs, because if you do it to spread your legs in that aspect, you might be doing it for the wrong reason. But hey, look, you could definitely do this on the cables, you could definitely do this on the machines, and you could even do it laying down flat without any machines and just doing like a banded. Now the most popular one, most famous one, of course, is the machine one, and the good thing about it is that it keeps yourself locked in. Now the only thing that you have to remember about machines is that since they're universal machines, they kind of are aimed at every type of body type. So you're gonna have to figure out where it fits for you and where it targets for you and how to position yourself. Some people like to lean back, some people like to lean forward, some people like it when they're kind of floating on the air, and you just kind of go based off how you like it and how it feels for you. So the best thing to do on this is when it's closing, when you're closing your legs, you want to basically control it yourself. That's where you want to be kind of focusing most of your strength at, as opposed to the opening part. So on the closing, you want to basically slow it down and control it. That way it's activating the muscle a lot more. You're going to feel it a lot more if you do it that way. Okay, so we still are doing hamstring focus, of course. So another good option for a glute day, or for this, that I recommend, are hamstring curls. So hamstring curls, of course, are going to be for hamstrings specifically, of course, it's in the name, but it also helps get that stretch and build, you know, that thickness. So you don't want to skip hamstring curls. Like I said, this was going to be kind of like a hamstring glute focus, so we are going to be throwing in a couple of hamstring exercises. So hamstring curls, kind of seated or laying, however you want to go about it. I prefer laying. I feel like it's a little bit less painful on my back, but I feel like if you are doing it seated, the best thing that I could recommend when you're seated is, since your body is kind of like before seated like that, what you want to do instead of leaning back like that, which kind of stretches the quad, you want to lean forward, so that way the muscles on the back of yourself kind of get that stretch, and that's the best way to go about kind of hitting the hamstring with kind of like getting the glute a little bit in there. You're not going to be hitting the glute, but you're going to be feeling a burn on your hamstrings a lot more, since your body is being stretched from the backwards position as opposed to the forward position. But hamstring curls, don't skip them. I think it's a good thing to always have and do. So can't really fuck it up on the machine, I guess. So not gonna be a lot of explaining, but last but definitely not least are going to be kickbacks, donkey kickbacks, whatever you want to call them, machine kickbacks, kind of whatever name you want to go for it. So there is a machine for them, of course, but at the same time, this has become more popular, more famous with girls doing it on the cables themselves. So, you know, when you see girls kind of on the low cables and they just start kicking backwards. So what this kind of focuses on more is going to be on the top shelf, if you want to call it that. So basically the top of the butt that kind of gives it the big bubble as opposed to kind of having like a teardrop. So this is going to hit more of that stretched top part just because when you are contracting yourself, basically flexing and hinging, you're flexing more on the top as opposed to the bottom part of the glute. So this is going to be that aspect. Now you could definitely do it on the cables like I was saying if you want to go that route. The machine, the good thing about the machines that like I was saying earlier is that they help keep you stabilized, they help keep you in your form, they help build the form. Now when you definitely progress, you're more than welcome to kind of just go on the cables and kind of learn how to do that aspect. But on the cables it's very hard to learn how to target it if you don't feel like you're doing it right and you're not doing it right. So it's going to be kind of confusing on the cable. But on the machine, the good thing about the machine is that you're kind of locked in, kind of like in a universal position. That kind of just helps you just target that muscle group that you're trying to target. So that's the reason why I recommend the machine. But cable, it's a lot more better when it comes to progressive overload and kind of a little bit more controlling it. But the machine is really nice on just helping you build that form. So we're going to be doing machines. A little bit of a different angle for you guys. So all you're doing, you're just kicking straight back up. So literally behind you, kind of like a donkey. So that's why it's called donkey kickbacks.
Okay, so glutes. Those are some recommendations to do on glute day. Now you could definitely basically work in some quad stuff. You could work in more hamstring stuff if you want, and if you even want to just basically kind of knock out, even take away any hamstring or take away any type of quad, you could always just focus on the glute itself if you want to have a specific glute day. Now, of course, like I said before, this is more popular with girls as opposed to men. But, should men train glutes? Men do train glutes, whether you believe it or not. When you're doing a squat, you're training the glute. When you're doing any type of workouts, you may even be training the glutes and you just don't even know about it. Compound movements. So they hit multiple things, multiple muscle groups. They don't just specifically target just one as opposed to certain things. Now, when you do machines as opposed to just free weights, you definitely have more of a controlled environment on what you're targeting. So that's kind of up to you. That's totally up to you on that pick. But personally, should men train glutes also? Yeah, men should also train glutes. You'd be surprised how many females out there actually like to see a good butt on a fucking dude. So, man, don't skip glute days either. Just throw it in. It helps a lot with back, posture, core, and it gives you the strength to do better overall. So those are some recommendations that I had on a glute hamstring day. Now, like I said before, if you had any type of information, if you have any type of things that you will add or take away, go ahead, let me know in the bottom. Thank you guys for watching. Always like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you guys.